to the Prophecy Club. Yes, I know there's lots of things going on in the world with Syria, and I talked about that, and I may interrupt this series that actually we've already started, talking about the Ark of the Covenant, and also other discoveries that Ron Wyatt have made. Now, let me explain why I'm about to do what I'm going to do. I have never played the audio of this DVD on the radio before. And the reason is because, frankly, it doesn't exactly play that good on radio because, you know, if you can't look at something and you're hearing someone try to describe it, it might not make that much sense. On the other hand, I don't think that this DVD, or now it's a DVD, it was really shot in VHS, has got enough people getting it. In other words, I tried to tell you how good it is, but I don't think you really understand, so I'm going to actually play the audio. Now, let me explain what it is, because I think once you hear the audio, you're going to say, oh my goodness, you're right. I need to see this video. All right, so here's the situation. Spring 1991, by the hand of God. I did talk about that a little bit, but I think this has to do with winning a lot of souls. The reason God sent Leslie and I on this 2-week tour. Spring 1991, Leslie and I went on a 2-week tour with Ron Wyatt. And every time he talked, I had this video running. And unfortunately, it is 1991, so you can hear the motor running of the VHS in the background. And, you know, it wasn't all that great quality compared to the fancy electronics we have in the cameras today, 4 chips and the like. But for 1991, this was pretty good video. I mean, I used metal tape, the very best tape I could get, and it was a brand new VHS, and it was a top quality VHS. Again, I think it was all the hand of God. But I'm going to go ahead and play the audio, and this may stretch through several broadcasts. But I think once you get a taste of what is on this video, you're going to have it. And no, it's not professional, it's amateur, but it's me in 1991 when I had no idea I would ever be in the ministry. Prophecy Club didn't start till 1993. But I think once you hear what we are simply talking about, you're going to have this, what it's going to come to you on video because we've upgraded it from VHS up to DVD. Now, here's the deal. We're putting together. You're going to get 4 discs for a gift of $40. You're going to get this one that was shot in 1991, upgraded to DVD, called Archaeology Confirms the Bible. Another DVD that I did in 2012 called Noah's Ark Confirms the Bible. And it's explaining specifically in pictures, a lot of pictures, showing all about Noah's Ark, what I saw there. Then you're going to get 2 discs made by Michael Rood called End Times Archaeology. The second one is called The Dead Sea Scrolls. 4 discs, valued at $80 for a gift to the ministry of $40. Yeah, it's good for us, keeps us going, but I think you're going to really want to see this information. That's the reason I'm putting it out. I'm going to go ahead and put it on the air. So there's going to be some dead spots. There's going to be some spots where you just hear the motor of the VHS running. But if you'll be patient, if you'll trust me, if you'll place this order, if you'll get this, when you watch it, you will be very glad you have your own personal copy of it. Let's go listen to Ron Wyatt on the DVD that I personally made called Archaeology Confirms the Bible.
They quote Genesis, I believe it's 9, as saying the ark landed on the mountain of Ararat. In fact, it says it landed in the mountains, plural, of Urartu, which is the equivalent of saying it landed somewhere in the Rocky Mountains or in the Himalayan mountains. It does not designate one specific spot. This site was seen in an aerial survey in the 50s. It was taken from the U-2 aircraft that was shot down over Russia. Gary Francis Powers filmed this. They had a cover story that a Turkish pilot filmed it. That's not true. It was a NATO aerial survey, and it was to be compared with later surveys in order to determine if there had been any missiles or military sites developed in Russia and in this part of Turkey if the Russians overran it suddenly, which was one of the possibilities and still is. So maybe you want to polish up on your Russian just in case they do that while we're here. But anyway, some people came out to check out this site, and they had listened to all the stories about Noah's Ark being intact. And consequently, when they came here and saw this in the condition that it's in, which, by the way, is a lot more than you could normally expect, and it would not have survived in this condition if God hadn't arranged for it to have been buried, first of all in a lava flow, and then next in some mud flows that followed that. This fossilized the material and preserved a lot more of it than would have been preserved had that not happened. So they came and digged a few holes through what we know to be the gunnels, and they blasted a hole in the side of it back there. In that blast, they blew chunks out of several rib timbers. They blew a large section out of a keelson and went their way, saying that there was nothing of archaeological interest out here. Now then, these people were at least smarter than I am, and the fact that they did not do chemical analysis, metal detector scans, and that sort of thing, I believe to be providential. We're told in Ephesians chapter 1, verse 10, that in the dispensation of fullness, says, of times, God subdued all things unto himself through Christ Jesus. In Matthew, we're told that when the fullness of the time had come, God sent forth his Son. So the reason those people did not realize that this was the remains of Noah's Ark was not a lack of intelligence. It was simply not God's time. And so anyway, later in 1977, we came out, looked at the site based on this aerial survey, and we took samples out of the areas that they had blasted. I did not have an excavation permit and could not have taken good samples had they not blasted these holes in there in 1960. So, as the Bible says, all things work together for good to them that love the Lord. And the men that came out here loved the Lord. The ones in 60, and of course, I love the Lord, and so do you. Anyway, we were able to take these samples, and the results showed a very high iron content. Of course, this told me that ferromagnetic metal detectors would give us readings on this object. So we got one of those, went over it, found that all around this edge that you're looking at here on 9-foot centers, we got very strong metal readings. Now, to make sure that this wasn't something, shall we say, didn't reflect the realities of a boat being under here, we did have an Army officer that dug into one of the big iron plates. We took a sample of that. It was 91+% ferric oxide, or iron, and it was right on the side of a large rib timber. So we have found since that time that this boat is full of tons and tons of massive iron plates and petrified wood. And as this iron oxidized during the time that the wood was fossilizing, it was incorporated into the wood. So we're able to read the fossilized timbers by this metal detection system also. Then we subsurface interface radar system that can penetrate in this type soil down to 70 feet. And this can be focused, much like your binoculars and your cameras. So we were able to look at strata by strata all the way down through this, get the location and size, and to some degree the material or the components of the large structures that remain of Noah's Ark. Now, we were able to do a wee bit of excavating, and right behind me here you see 2 deck support timber. Now, these, you will see another one, and it's only indicated by the difference in color of the site. This is one of the things that many people miss when they are investigating an ancient artifact. They expect too much, and consequently they miss seeing what is there. Now, there's a light colored lump up here. This is a vertical timber in the boat, right behind this deck beam or deck timber is the end of another timber, and right to the right of it is yet another timber that was part of the massive railing that went around the boat. Right below these deck beams are deck support timbers that go down vertically and support this. Now, earlier on, exactly opposite to us, were the counterparts of these timbers. However, that has fallen into the gully and is lost. So we're hoping that we can do something rather quickly to stop the deterioration of the back end of what's left of the boat here. But as you progress around the side of this, at even distances, you find these darker spots on the bank. Each of those represent what's left of a timber, and the radar scan, of course, shows that timber under the dirt that, of course, you cannot see through yourself. So anyway, all around the perimeter of this boat on 9-foot centers are massive rib timbers. We were able, down in the lower part of the boat, to retrieve one of the deck planks. This was fossilized and in quite good state of survival. There are chambers in here that have not collapsed. There's others that are filled with mud and debris. We have found in these chambers animal hair. We have found a petrified antler. They are shed periodically and doesn't hurt the animal. They simply grow another one back. We have found fossilized animal droppings, which are referred to in scientific jargon as corpolites, plus pierced anchor stones of the appropriate size for a 515-foot boat. So there is overwhelming evidence that this is indeed the remains of Noah's Ark. Now, these are also accompanied by inscriptions in the Sumerian script, in the Urartuan script, and in the Hurite hieroglyphics. So all of these things say that this is Noah's Ark, and having been a student of archaeology for some time, as you can tell by the hair color I wear, this is more than is required to identify an object. There is no reason for anybody at this point in time, if they are informed about what is out here, to conclude or to say that this is not the remains of Noah's Ark.
Okay, Ron White just told me that all along this side, beginning right there, going down to there, about 18 feet wide, is the door of the ark. He said he could not get a reading on how tall the door was because he couldn't get an angle on his radar. He said, but that confirmed that that is the door.
We drilled in there several feet, struck an iron, or rather a brass bar on the way in. It did some awful things to my core drill and to me out on the end of it. But once we got into the chamber, we were able to rig up a scraping device on the end of a stick and reach in and bring out some stuff. As I was dragging this stuff out, apparently I left some in the tunnel. Later, I stuck enough mud in there and jammed it in to fill the back of the hole so it would look like it was a dead end. And Marinelle comes along, reaches in, and pulls out some stuff with an animal hair in it. Well, we took this home and kept it, videoed it, and all this sort of thing. And along comes Dr. Roberts and gets into this stuff, and I guess he probably found 25 animal hairs, one of which was bright red.
Bright red. I couldn't believe that.
So we don't know exactly what these hairs came off of, but it's very obvious that they're animal hairs, and they came out of this hole. Now then, at some point in this excavation, we would like to think that we can make a pathway or a walkway through the hollow part of the boat so that people can walk through and see this. spokes being what they are, however, we're going to have to use glass or something to separate the walkway from the remains of the boat so people can't reach out and help themselves. But that's one of the things I'm hoping to do in our excavation. Slick, the gunnel is right behind that. And if you flake this whole thing off right here, you can see some fairly well preserved gunnel right behind it. And when we start excavating, we will do some of that. Quite parallel or level and flat, you're quite close to. Now, this stuff has not petrified to the extent that it is solid as the piece I have back home. Consequently, when it rains and that sort of thing, it erodes some of the actual structure away here, and that's why it's pitted and all this sort of thing. When we excavate, we'll be able to pull this section away from it, and then you'll be able to see a quite well preserved section of the hull of the boat. Now, as somebody just mentioned a minute ago, if we just come in here and dig the covering off of some of this fossilized material, the first winter it goes through, it'll destroy it. So we have got to cover it first and then excavate it. So that's why it's going to be so expensive. If we just came out and dug the dirt away, we could photograph some very impressive stuff, but that would be the kiss of death, and that is not what archaeologists are supposed to do. And we, of course, as Christians, are supposed to do everything decently and in order. So when we do archaeological digs, when we find pottery, we film it, document it, preserve it, and then we go on. We don't give it the blind dog in the meat house or the bull in the china closet treatment, because doing that will get you booted off of an archaeological site, and for good reason. These people don't know the Lord's coming. They think this stuff's going to be around for years, and we had better treat it like they want it treated, or we won't get to do the work we need to do to share this with people and witness to them about.
So that's Noah's Ark, and you can see very clearly from here, having looked at it up close, that it's a boat. And what they think happened is it actually landed someplace up in here. And then as the mud flows and rains came and snows, it eventually sifted down, came to rest right in there. If you look at the side of the boat, you can see the timbers, the ribs, the way they come up and hold it. What they think happened is the boat came down off of the mountain and would have gone right on down the valley, right on down here, and then finally broken up. All down in there, it would have just been a bunch of pieces and all been lost. But as the boat came down off the mountain, it hit that rock right there, and that rock ran up through the side of it and kind of nailed it to the side of the mountain and held it there. And then in 1978, up to that point, it was buried in mud, and there was an earthquake in December of 1978 that dropped the mud from around it, and what helps us to see it so clearly today that it is a boat. This is one of the anchor stones from Noah's Ark. As we look closely, you can see the inscription. See, there's a cross, part of a cross that's broken in half. There's another cross, 1, 2, and you can see there's another larger cross there of Noah's house. What's left of Noah's house after people came out and ransacked it looking for treasures.
We are at the site of what appears to have been Noah's home at some point after he left the ark. Right off in this area were 2 grave markers, and we have those on film at home. I took them in 1977. Now, we made a little booklet and made sketches of all these things. And one of the people, a real good Christian, and if you didn't believe it, just ask him. Have you met those kind of folks? When I meet them anymore, they don't get anything. But at that time, I was rather naive, so I gave him one of these books. Well, I was going to bring the group out here in 1984 and show them this. We got down to another village where there was some old millstones, and I showed them that first. While I was showing them that, I saw this guy off with my sketch of the grave markers, showing them to one of the villagers to see if he knew where they were located. At that point in time, I decided that we didn't have time to get out here to see this place. But he persisted, and finally he found somebody that knew where this was, paid them $400 to dig up Mrs. Noah's grave. And again, I have the description of the people that interrogated the guy that dug it up, and some of the folks that saw it as it migrated westward and was eventually sold for over $100 million on the black market in Istanbul. Now that's a pretty impressive sum of money for jewelry. I was told that she had a head dressing of some sort that was made of gold, necklaces, bracelets, but the main thing that she had was some sort of a large bodice that was solid gold and encrusted with many gemstones. And as it turns out, like I said up on the mountain, the only way you're going to get to see that is if you get to heaven, and I assume we'll get a replay of all of this. They dug this grave up, and if you want to walk over and look, you'll see it's quite a long grave. There was sarcophagus appeared in Ankara about that time that was 18 feet in length. It appears that they missed Noah's grave, which is in this area, and as you see, we have our guests back with us again watching to see what we might show interest in. So we're not going to show interest in anything they can carry off and sell to somebody. But when we get started excavating out here, one of the things I hope to do is just come back and excavate this grave of Noah. I doubt seriously that he will have the type jewelry that was on his wife, but at least we'll get to see what size he was and perhaps see something from his period of time that might have been buried with him. When they apparently got word back that this thing had sold for that much money, they came out here and systematically destroyed this building. When I first saw it in 1977, it was pretty much intact except for the roof. And ancient buildings usually have lost their roofs if somebody hadn't lived in them recently. Now then, if you want to go with us up to this large stone right in the saddle of the valley there, that appears to have been an altar. And from that point you can see the system of fences here that appears to have been a system of corrals and pens. And we were told that Noah became a husbandman. And of course there's cattle husbandry, and it's specifically mentioned that he planted some grapes or a vineyard.
Ron thinks maybe an altar, possibly the altar that Noah. And this is what we think is Noah's altar. There's some kind of a fencing system where he used to keep his animals, where he raised part of them. Now I'm at a higher point, and as we look back over towards the west, right over there, we just looked at the anchor stone, and then as we back up and come back down towards the east of the valley, see there's the village of 8, and as we look real close you can see there's of course Noah's house, and you can see the rows of stone fences that we think he kept some of the animals in, probably for his cattle, to feed his family. You can see the stones standing up. A person might say, how can they move such large heavy stones? We're going to go down and look at Noah's wife's grave, or what's left of it, just a hole in the ground. And he says that it's perhaps 18 feet in length. So they were big people back then. That fence was not too hard for him to build, as would compared to us today. And there's the rock that we think Noah did his sacrificing on. And I got up close and asked myself, why would he choose that rock? And as I looked at it real close, you can see that there's kind of an indentation. And there's enough room for a person to get up there and to have put wood and place the animal and perform the sacrifice. If I were going to do that, that would probably be the place I would do it in the area. He can come up here and people can see the sacrifice from miles around if that might be important to them at that time. And this area here is just a natural amphitheater. We can hear people talk from all around. And then what they think happened is this is the rock where the sacrifices were sacrificed from. They think that this area here perhaps was once a corral that held the animals, and then the animal was brought right up here. It's a natural place to kill the animal, then taken up there for the sacrifice. They held their worship service right here in this natural amphitheater. And as you listen, you can hear people talk from all over. It just picks up sound every place. There's another one of the anchor stones. You can see there where the rope went into it. And you can see the crosses there on it, representing the 8 that survived the flood.
I'll point out a few things to you here that once you notice them, shall we say, will tend to make good sense. This stone weighs several tons, and you'll notice the hole is affixed right near the top. A stone of this weight suspended with just that small portion of itself, when suspended in open air.
I'm going to interrupt there, but I'm going to really encourage you to get this offer. Because, okay, here's the thing. When this stuff starts happening, when we really realize that we have entered the end times, now, some of us know it's pretty close, but when we're really there, this is going to be really important for you to have for your soul-winning activities that will be going on then. First DVD is the amateur DVD, actually it was VHS, turned into DVD, called Archaeology Confirms the Bible. I promise you, you will be impressed with it, even though it was made in 1991. Next one is me talking in 2012 explaining about Noah's Ark, called Noah's Ark Confirms the Bible. Third one is 2 DVDs made by Michael Rood, End Times Archaeology and the Dead Sea Scrolls. That's 4 discs, gift of $40. I promise you, you will be very glad you get this offer. And as your soul-winning activities begin to increase, as the trouble increases, and apparently with all these wars appearing to be on the horizon now, that may be closer than further off. So it's important for you to get this information. It's called the Archaeology Gift Offer, available at prophecyclub.com, of course, or you can call us 785-266-1112. Archaeology Gift Offer, 785-266-1112, or prophecyclub.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your prayers, and thank you for your gifts of support. God bless. Now from the Prophecy Club, some exciting opportunities for you. I just made a new DVD giving 4 specific reasons why all people should believe Dimitri Duduman, and 4 specific incidents with him, proving that he was from God. And then I give Dimitri's testimony and his dreams and visions, 2.5 hours. Bree did an awesome job that will surprise you with the information that she has from Kenya and other nations where globalists have been changing Christian nations into globalist anti-Christ nations. You will be shocked. You do not know what is in this DVD. I didn't. I promise you do not know this. You will be shocked. My experiences with Dimitri Duduman and Bree's America's War in Heavens, both for a gift of $40 at prophecyclub.com or 785-266-1112. My experiences with Dimitri Duduman and America's War in the Heavens, 785-266-1112 or prophecyclub.com. Order today.